Welcome back to Behind the Counter Pharmacy and Beyond, the podcast where real stories meet real business lessons. I'm your host, Solomon Abuede, and in today's episode, I'm talking about something every business will face sooner or later: the reality of scaling up. It's exciting, yes, but it can also be chaotic, overwhelming, and full of unexpected lessons. I'll be sharing the challenges that we faced when growth came faster than expected, and more importantly, how we managed to regain control. In the last episode, I talked about how trust fueled our early growth, how customers started choosing us over the big chains, and how that loyalty opened doors for more opportunities. If you haven't listened to episode 5, please go back and hear how simple, consistent actions created a foundation for something much bigger. But today's episode is the next chapter. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to hit follow or subscribe depending on where you're listening, so you stay updated on every new episode. I also welcome your feedback. Let me know what you like and what you think I can improve. Your input is valuable and I really appreciate every single listener. Thank you for being here. I've been asked a few times how I would describe growth in a business, and the simple answer is, to me, growth is a good problem until it isn't. When we had the one branch, everything was going great. We were growing and the growth was so exponential that we could not have asked for more. That was until we acquired a second branch 6 years later. Now, this second branch was in a completely new territory. In fact, it was only about 7.5 miles away from our first pharmacy, still within Leeds, and very much in a local community setting, like the one we're already used to. On the surface, it felt familiar. But once we stepped inside, it was clear that this was not just another version of what we had. The new pharmacy was much larger. It had 3 different departments within it, a higher prescription volume, and a team that had been working together for over a decade. It was a well-oiled machine, but it wasn't our machine. Naturally, this came with new sets of challenges. Some we were prepared for, but others not so much. The excitement quickly gave way to anxiety. I wasn't ready for the culture shift or how much harder it was going to be to stay on top of things with more people, more prescriptions, more everything really. It was busier and a bigger pharmacy. On paper, we thought we were ready, but paper doesn't run pharmacies. We had considered the obvious things. For example, we knew we were significantly increasing our workforce, and the second branch had 14 employees compared to 2 that we were used to. One of the first changes I had to make was how we handled payroll. I was used to manually transferring payments to employees on payday, but very quickly I realized that this would not be scalable. I would not sit there and manually make payments to almost 20 people each month. It was just never going to happen. There would have been some mistakes, and I did not want that to happen, so we approached the bank and got a BACS facility set up. This meant that the payroll company can automatically credit each employee's account on payday each month without any manual input from myself. Looking back, that was about the only thing that I saw coming. What I didn't anticipate were the team dynamics, the shift in morale at the new branch, the wave of resignations that followed, and the hidden challenges in the buying habits. The first thing we noticed was the cultural shift and the team dynamics. At our first branch, we knew everything from ground up: the team, the systems, and even the layout. Everyone knew the roles and we all shared the same vision. But here, we're stepping into an established structure. The pharmacist in the new branch had been acting as both the branch manager and superintendent pharmacist for years, with the complete trust of the previous owner who wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations of the business. And suddenly, she was reporting to me. Now, while she handled the challenge professionally, it wasn't long before the tension started to show. About 2 months in, she asked for a private meeting. I remember her words clearly. She said to me, "If I stay in the business, Solomon, I'll stall your vision." She wasn't angry or emotional, just honest. She'd spent years building a way of working with a team and knew that our approach would be different. It was a brave conversation and I respected her deeply for it. She handed in a resignation and left the business a few months later. 2 weeks after this conversation, 2 more staff members handed in the notice. It felt like a domino effect. They had built trust over years of working side by side, and we were now the outsiders coming in to change everything. Meanwhile, customers walked through the door asking where their familiar faces had gone. That was tough. We weren't just rebuilding trust with the team. We had to win over the community again. In episode 4, I discussed the importance of knowing your why. At that moment, with the resignation of key staff and the potential impact on our customers, if we did not have a clear vision or understand our why, we could easily have swayed and done things differently. But we didn't. We stuck to the plan and kept going. At that point, I had a decision to make. Do I panic or do I lead? I arranged one-on-one meetings with the rest of the team. I asked them straight up, are you with us or thinking of leaving? That helped because I got a clear commitment from the team, and it was an opportunity to address any concerns they had about their new way of working. One of those staff members still refers to that moment as key in his decision to stay and is still with us today. The team was settled for the next few years, and although most people moved on for various reasons over the years that followed, that initial exodus was halted, which was crucial. This was when I knew that things would not be as straightforward as I had thought. We had always dreamed of expansion, but what no one tells you is that scaling isn't just doing more of the same thing, it's doing it differently. Around the same time, while dealing with these teething problems, I had a conversation with a friend. We had started our pharmacy journeys at roughly the same time, and like us, he'd run his first branch for years before expanding. He'd recently taken on more pharmacies, bringing his total to 3. As we were catching up, he started talking about how exhausted he was. He mentioned staffing issues, constant juggling, and never-ending fires to put out. The more he spoke, the more I realized how much of the business still depended entirely on him. It was literally shuttling between branches each day. He'd start in one pharmacy, head to another one in the afternoon, and then circling back to the first pharmacy in the evening to close up. And it hit me. 10 years into the business and 3 pharmacies later, he still ran it like he did when he had only one branch. I asked him a simple question. What are you doing differently now that you have 3 pharmacies compared to when you have just one? He paused for a second and said, nothing. That moment stuck with me because sometimes growth is so slow and organic that you don't even realize how much your business has changed. You just keep doing what you've always done, assuming it'll keep working. But here's the truth. Growth demands change. You have to stop, take stock, and reassess because the systems, habits, and mindsets that worked at one stage of your business won't always work at the next. Adjusting while you grow in business is crucial. The process you had in place when you first started would not be fit for purpose as you grow, and you must be aware of this and make the change quickly. For us, the first system that didn't scale up was our holiday booking process. When we had just one branch, it was all done verbally. We always knew who was off when, but with 16 employees, that approach quickly became unworkable. We had to implement a proper system to track holidays and prevent overlapping leave. It might sound unbelievable, but there was actually a time when I ended up approving leave for almost the entire team in the same week, which left just the 2 of us to run the pharmacy. That experience was a serious wake-up call, and not long after, we introduced a structured holiday management system. Stock ordering was another area that didn't scale well. At our first branch, we had full visibility. We could literally count the number of items on the shelves at any given time. We had tight stock control and knew exactly what was coming in and what was going out. In fact, we were achieving a 47% gross profit margin, which was phenomenal at the time considering that most pharmacies would average between 30 and 33%. But acquiring the second branch was a completely different kettle of fish. There was stock everywhere. The volume of items dispensed was more than double what we were used to. The pharmacy had 2 floors, upstairs and downstairs, 3 different departments. Stock was scattered throughout the building. Suddenly, we didn't know what was where. Our gross profit margin plummeted to as low as 27%, which was below the national average. We had to act and act fast. To regain control, we introduced a cascading ordering system. This allowed us to track all orders and ensure that we bought from the cheapest suppliers first. This system also gave us the ability to block lines when we had enough stock or too much stock, and that alone made a big difference in tightening our processes. The best part of it, for me, was that it built accountability. Every time an order was sent, I received an email with the details. And I remember sitting at home one evening and I received an email notification that an order had been sent for 30 packs of a medication that I knew we already had plenty of. Within a minute of that order being sent, I picked up the phone and called the branch and I asked why they'd ordered it. The team member on the other end was stunned. He asked if I had cameras in the pharmacy. He couldn't believe how I knew so quickly that an order had been sent or indeed what was on the order. Incidents like that built my reputation in the team. They still joke till this day that nothing happens in a business without me knowing. And although they joke about it, in a way, they're absolutely right. I might not always be physically present, but we've put in systems in place to keep me informed. And that's absolutely vital for any growing business. But here's the interesting thing. It's what you do with that information that makes all the difference. These systems weren't set up to catch people out or criticize them. They're there to coach, guide, and help us improve so we can deliver the best possible service to our customers. By the time we'd settled into the second branch, we'd started to find our rhythm again. The early challenges had forced us to grow in mindset, systems, and in leadership. We'd built a stronger foundation, and for the first time, it felt like we were truly running a multi branch business. And so, naturally, the entrepreneurial itch came again. When the opportunity came up to acquire two more pharmacies, we were ready, or at least we thought we were anyway. These two branches were based in Scarborough, a seaside town about 75 miles from Leeds. On paper, they looked like a great opportunity. Both were established businesses with a 40-hour pharmacy contract, which was a big draw for us at the time. Our existing branches were 100-hour pharmacies, and we were desperate to avoid adding another one of those to our pool of pharmacies. The operational challenges that came with running a 100-hour contract are intense. They really are intense. And honestly, I've always wondered how the NHS landed on that number, 100 hours. I understand the need to keep pharmacies open longer, but did it really have to be that long, 100 hours a week? Anyway, I digress. The two pharmacies in Scarborough were quite different from each other. One was much larger and located on a busy main road in town. The other sat in a village and was the only pharmacy serving that entire community. Like our branches in Leeds, they were rooted in their communities, serving real people with real needs. We saw the potential immediately and had a clear vision to build a regional network of community focused pharmacies, all sharing the same values, unified systems, and a commitment to delivering high quality care. But looking back now, we may have been too focused on the similarities and underestimated the differences. Here is what I mean by that. These two branches were in a completely different environment. Scarborough wasn't Leeds, and we found that out the hard way. The supply chain wasn't as flexible. The pool of available pharmacies was smaller, and being 75 miles away from home meant we couldn't just pop in to sort out issues. We also didn't fully anticipate how much personal sacrifice would be involved. I remember in the early months after my acquisition, I spent my weekdays in Scarborough, Monday to Friday, living out of hotels and returning home on weekends. It was demanding. We had a young family at the time, which took a toll. The distance, the logistics, and the separation from our home base made every challenge feel 10 times harder, and it really was hard. The drive was really, really long. Supply wise, we were spot for choice in Leeds. Deliveries twice a day, every wholesaler at our doorstep. But in Scarborough, some only delivered once a day, others by courier, and some didn't even deliver to that area at all. It threw our stock control into chaos. We couldn't supply medications for our customers. Eventually, we had to negotiate with one supplier who agreed to deliver twice a day. But that came at a cost. We lost the flexibility on pricing, and that had a real impact on our gross profit margins. But at the time, we felt it was more important to get our customer service right over profitability of the business. The staffing was another headache. Scarborough has a smaller working population compared to Leeds, and pharmacists were in short supply. To cover shifts, we often had to bring locums in from Leeds or Bradford at higher rates and with added travel costs. That wasn't sustainable either. We tried to make it work. We gave it everything, but slowly we started to see the cracks. The strain on our time, our team, and our bottom line started to affect not just the new branches, but the performance of our original ones too. Eventually, we had to make the difficult decision to let go of the Scarborough branches. We ran them for just under 2 years, and when we sold, we took a loss financially. But in hindsight, it was the right move. It gave us back our focus, our time, and the space to re strategize. And I always say, in business, knowing when to exit is just as important, if not more important, as knowing when to start. That moment marked a turning point for us. We had two options: either retreat back to survival mode or rebuild stronger and smarter. We chose to rebuild. So what helped us regain control. The first thing we did to regain control was selling the Scarborough branches and restructuring the business. Letting go of the Scarborough branches was one of the hardest decisions we had to make, not just financially, but emotionally. It felt like admitting defeat. I remember speaking to my wife and the accountant about it to make the decision, and both my wife and the accountant were very much, on the side of we should sell. Now, I knew we had to sell, but I felt like we could turn it around. And that was a difficult moment. But once we made a call and sold the branches, it was like taking a deep breath for the first time in months. It gave us space to think clearly again. The pressure lifted, and we realized how much Scarborough expansion had been distracting us from what we did best. We went back to the drawing board. We took a hard look at the business, not just the numbers, but the structure, the leadership, the way we worked, and we started rebuilding. Except this time, we started rebuilding smarter. The second thing I did was to invest in myself. One of the first things I realized during this reset period was that I had taken the business as far as I could with just my pharmacy experience and pharmacy degree. I was just a pharmacist running a business and trying to scale up. I knew something had to change, and that change had to start with me. So I enrolled in the MBA Essentials course at the London School of Economics. That course was a game changer. It opened my eyes to strategic thinking, data driven decision making, and most importantly, systems. I stopped seeing myself as a pharmacist running a business and started thinking like a business leader running a pharmacy group. That shift in mindset gave me the confidence to start doing things differently. Thirdly, we brought in specialist advice. With a fresh perspective on the course I just completed, we brought in a team of external consultants to work with us. They sat with us for a week, listened to our vision, and helped map out a strategic plan for the next 3 years. We weren't just reacting anymore, we were planning. We also changed our accountants around the same time. Our original accountant was great, but he wasn't a pharmacy specialist. His advice was cautious, and I could tell, sometimes to the point of fear. And he often recommended pulling out of opportunities just because he didn't understand the risks. He almost felt like he was holding us back, like we had grown him at the time. Once we switched to a pharmacy specific accountancy firm, everything changed. They helped to structure the business properly, track the right metrics, and most importantly, gave us the confidence to grow again. Then we built an internal support system. We knew we couldn't do it all by ourselves anymore. So we started building a small but mighty head office team. We promoted people from within to take on buying, procurement, and the area manager roles to support the branches with day-to-day issues. And we started to map out those who had the potential to step into the head office role in future. We brought in pharmacists so we could finally step back from the shop floor and focus on running the business instead of constantly working in it. And I had to do something I'd struggled with for years: delegate. I gave the team ownership of things like stock management, staff rotas, and even some basic financial reporting. That small shift changed everything. I went from being stretched thin across every corner of the business to having a handful of people report directly to me, and my productivity soared. And finally, we started documenting everything. This was a big one. We stopped running the business from our heads. Until then, I used to answer the same questions repeatedly, giving slightly different responses each time, and this was costing us. There were inconsistencies, confusion, and mistakes. So we began the process of building real written procedures, things like staff induction packs, buying guides, and step-by-step templates for daily operations. We started creating policies that anyone in the business could follow, so things didn't fall apart when we weren't physically there. But let me be honest, this was nowhere near as straightforward as it sounds. Definitely not. It took us years to get these processes in place. And even now, we're still writing, reviewing, and refining them. It's not a one off project, it's an ongoing discipline because business evolves so quickly. And if your processes don't evolve with it, you get left behind. Here are the key takeaways from this episode, and I truly hope they help guide you on your own journey. These are a bit more than I'd usually share at the end of every episode, but that's because this stage of business, the scaling stage, can make or break everything you've worked so hard to build. I've lived through the mistakes, the lessons, and the long nights, and honestly, I don't want you to have to learn the hard way like we did. So take these lessons, use what fits your journey, and keep building wisely. 1. Scaling up isn't just doing more, it's doing things differently. What worked when you had one branch doesn't work when you have 2, 3, or 4. Growth forces you to rewire how your business operates. 2, your systems must evolve with your business. Verbal holiday request and casual stock control might work with a small team, but scaling requires structure, automation, and clear visibility across the board. 3, team dynamics will shift, and that's okay. People may leave. In fact, people will leave, most definitely, and that's part of the process. What matters is how you handle the transition. Rebuild trust quickly, both with your staff and your customers. 4, don't ignore the warning signs. You need to learn to act quickly. Profit drops, team unrest, or operational breakdowns are not things to push aside. The Scarborough expansion taught us this, and sometimes cutting your losses sets you up for future wins. 5, build a support structure that frees you up. Promoting from within, creating a head office team, or giving ownership to team leads allowed me to finally step back and focus on growing the business and not just surviving in it. 6, document everything. Processes, policies, and guides reduce confusion. They increase consistency and make scaling sustainable. 7, surround yourself with the right advisors. A specialist accountants change everything for us. The right advisors will change your thinking, help you avoid pitfalls, and give you the confidence to scale smarter. But you need to bear in mind, these people do not always come cheap. But as the saying goes, you get what you pay for. And finally, invest in yourself if you want to grow your business. My MBA Essentials course at London School of Economics was a turning point. It gave me the language and tools to lead, not just manage. Remember, growth starts with mindset, and mindset starts with learning. And that brings us full circle. Thank you for sticking with me on this episode. Scaling nearly broke us, but it also refined us. It exposed our weak points, forced us to evolve, and ultimately helped us build a more resilient, structured business. What matters most is not the challenges came, because there will always be challenges, but how we responded. We took a step back, reassessed everything, and committed to growing, not just our business, but ourselves as leaders. So if you're in that messy middle, where growth feels like it's pulling you apart, don't panic. Take a breath, take a step back, and remember this: you have the power to rebuild better, smarter, and stronger. In the next episode, I'll take you behind the scenes to one of the hardest lessons I had to learn: delegation. Trusting other people to take ownership, building a leadership team, and stepping away from the day-to-day running of the business. If you've ever struggled with handing over control or felt like your business can't run without you, then episode 7 is for you. It's called Letting Go Saved My Business: The Truth About Delegation as a Founder. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode, follow, subscribe, like, and share, or save to listen again later. You can also connect with me on social media at _BTC Podcast. And remember, the best prescription for success is resilience. Thank you for listening.